Morning, everybody. Very nice to see everybody on this Reverence morning. We've swapped out from Cliff Teas and we're moving into raw blacks. Now, somebody last week asked me a question about the alleged health benefits of Cliff Teas. And I gave my usual way too broad an answer that nobody can complain about because it's not very specific. What I did want to share with you is information that I got this week, and it's private information from researchers who are working on a project related specifically to Cliff Tea. And the project has to do with demonstrating that it has an effect on the immune health. And specifically, they're looking at the minerals in the soil and their effect on immune health. So there is work, and I did mention that there is work. And by coincidence, this week, I heard some initial thoughts about that from the scientists who are working on it. So at any rate, just want to let you know there's plenty of research going on about that. Secondly, let's talk about upcoming events, and let's also talk about some examples of things that have happened that actually should be meaningful to you and should help you understand really what the role of this tea shop is compared to other tea shops. And in fact, let's start there before we even jump into the events. So we have close to here a couple restaurant owners who were both born in China. They go back and forth to China quite often. They're both really skilled business people. One of them is an incredible wheeler dealer and has shown in the past his willingness to go and try and find things that he thinks that he loves here. And he goes back and forth to China and Taiwan and so forth. So he's thought, you know what, rather than pay the Sophie's prices, let me just go back to China, get a plane and, go find the stuff. So with somewhat, and he's never really ever embarrassed, but as close to embarrassment as he can get. He's come back a couple times and fairly recently and said, you know what, I don't know how it is, but I can't get the grade. I just can't get the stuff that you have here. That was one comment. Then secondly, recently, like this week, he came in and complained. He said, all these people in Taiwan and China purport to really know how to brew tea. And yet when he tasted from Tea Master brewing tea, he says it's not even close. And so this is the value, part of it that you get at this tea shop. We're not casual. You see all these advertisements come from abroad. Oh yeah, this person lived in China for X amount of time, or this person was born in China, and therefore the implication that they know how to do tea. The answer is, yes, they may know people that other people wouldn't have access to, but they don't know how to make judgments about tea. That's where we spent 10 years of focus, learning, and hard work to learn how to make those judgments. That's the benefit. That's part of the benefit that you get from coming to this shop. So I want this as a reminder. And actually, I'm going to put two people on the spot. And I apologize ahead of time, and you can punish me later. So Acacia and Aaron went to the World Tea Association conference in Las Vegas, and they had some experiences which showed how much they really do know from the classes here, and how they were able to identify mistakes that were performed by people who are famous. Those are the most interesting types of mistakes, and clear mistakes, because they were able to come back and show me what those mistakes were. So again, you may not, or you may think, oh, the understudy always exaggerates. He uses this 99 or this one. And that's got to be exaggeration. I can't know more than most of the people who drink tea or who were born in China or born in Japan do. The answer is you do know more. And so be confident in that and feel blessed that you have this knowledge. All right, enough of that. Let's talk about upcoming events. We are very fortunate here at Sophie's. And what I have to tell you, you're even more fortunate this morning to be on this broadcast, because Acacia, courtesy of Acacia, we're going to have a Rinpoche come to the shop on July 21st. That's the afternoon of July 21st. And he's going to talk about Buddhism. And by the way, if you want to attend, all of you who are listening this morning, I will make available tickets for you to attend. This appears, based on the current information I have, to be a standing room only event. Looks like we'll sell out tickets once this becomes public information. It's not public yet. You're getting a preview. So July 21st in the afternoon, Rinpoche, if you have questions about Buddhism, prosaic questions. What does it feel like to get up in the morning to be a Buddhist? Hey, you can ask any of those. That too. This person will be willing to go ahead and answer those questions. And by the way, I used a Tibetan term, and some of you may be scratching your head. Rinpoche. He didn't even pronounce it correctly. What the heck is that? What it is a term of respect for a person who leads a Buddhist temple, typically related to Tibetan Buddhism, person who has, this person, the respect portion of it has to do with knowledge, has to do with that they believe that this person has been reincarnated. So Rinpoches don't just spring up out of the ground. The Dalai Lama knows all of them because it has to be blessed and it has to be approved. And so this is why this event is so exceptionally special. And again, Acacia, I thank you for setting this up. She spent a couple weeks at one of this person's retreats, and their assistants came to the shop a couple weeks ago, look, because Acacia said, well, you can get real Buddhism in this shop. She probably shouldn't have said it that way. However, nonetheless, this attracted everybody. Well, let's go get real Buddhism. And they came to the shop and they saw what this shop represents, and therefore went back and asked the leader and said, look, here's what this shop is. We think that you will have a good reception here, and this will be interesting for you as well. Because this guy rarely speaks outside of his retreat. And that's the other reason I was truly surprised that this got set up. So for those of you who are interested, you got to let me know, because like I said, the pre-excitement about this is telling me that we're going to sell out on this particular event. So, okay, we've gotten all this administrative work out of the way. Let's talk about raw black this morning. Reverence. Reverence comes from the Jingmai Mountains. Now, for those of you who just got up and haven't looked at your emails yet, this morning at around 9:05, I sent you an email to help place where the Jingmai Mountains are. So in fact, in that email, there are 3 pictures. There's a picture of China overall and where Yunnan fits into China. And then there's insets, 2 insets. An inset which shows the county that Jingmai Mountain is in. And if you'll notice on the bottom right, there's a little circle with a black dot and it says Jingmai, Jingmai. So that's what we're talking about. This is the village or village area, or this is the mountain, I'm sorry, that we're talking about. The villages are located in this mountain. And to the west of that is an area some of you may have heard of called Xishuangbana, very famous resort area or tourist area right on the southern border of Yunnan. And to the east of that is actually Burma. So it's very, very close to the border. And so what we're going to talk about today, we're going to take a departure because, you know, usually I get up here and science is in my head and I'm trying to think of which long words am I going to use today and how am I going to describe the process. We're not going to do any of that today. Instead, we're going to talk about cultural terroir because as it turns out, in Jingmai, that's become a World Heritage Site. Why? Well, it's beautiful in the first place. World Heritage Sites tend to be beautiful. So yeah, that's true. It is beautiful. But secondly, they have something that the FAO, what is the FAO again? Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations. Oh, that sounds important. It is important. They keep track around the world what countries are doing agriculturally. And they have said that this area is a GIAHS area, globally important agricultural heritage system. And what does that really mean? What it really means is people are using ancient methodology to manage large swaths of agricultural lands. And they're doing it successfully and sustainably. And oh, by the way, they've been doing it for over 1,000 years. That's the sustainable part. Now, let's think about this a minute. We're doing this ancient traditional way of agriculture. What are we working with? We're working with the tea plant. What sort of tea plants can they have been working with 1,000 or more years ago? Well, you have ancient tree, right? So ancient tree is divided for the purposes of this discussion and this analysis into 3 categories. You have completely wild ancient trees. So those are, and again, these are arbitrary numbers, 1,700 years or older. And what that really means, let's think about what that means. Wild ancient trees. Oh, no human intervention. Somehow the birds, the bees, the spiders, the little creatures that live in that area got a hold of seeds, moved them along to somewhere else, and then boink, up popped a tree. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Just like that. I don't want to imply it was that simple, but that is what happened. So those are the completely wild ancient trees. What's the second category? Second category is transitional ancient trees. And those go from about 1,000 years to 1,700 years. Transitional from what? So we know that between today and 1,000 years ago, people planted, cultivated on purpose tea trees. From 1,000 to 1,700 years ago, it appears they may have started that. And what does that mean? They took particular varietals of the truly wild trees. I want this one. I like how this one behaves. And started to plant them. Now, were these traditional, transitional planters, did they behave as industrial planters? The answer would be no. Industrial planters, what do? Let's get that land all cleared away, make it nice and smooth. Let's get those monoclonal, let's get a lot of them. And you know, I want to be efficient. I want a lot together. You know why? Because I like high yield. I'm an industrialist. I like profit. Oh, and while I'm doing that, by the way, maybe I would like to have them yield even more than they could normally yield if I didn't help them out. So let me lay fertilizer down. And you know what? My defenses are pretty good. So I developed defensive mechanisms to help prevent bugs and objectionable things from coming onto this land. You know, I want high yield and lots of profit. So that's the industrial approach. This transitional approach from 1,000 to about 1,700 years ago was more, you know what, we're in a forest. I understand as an ethnic minority, and by the way, you're going to ask me the following question, so I'm going to answer it right now. What ethnic minorities were living in this area? You had the Bulong ethnic minority, you had the Dai, and the Dai is actually related to Thai people, same lineage. You had the Lahu ethnic minority, and you had the Hani. So basically, it's the Bulong and the Dai, but you had these other ethnic minorities in this area. And so what they're all saying is essentially the following. The forest, I worship the forest. The forest has been good to me and my family. I want some more of some things, but I don't want to disturb the forest. So I'm going to actually move some things in the forest without really disturbing the forest. When I plant, I'm going to plant anywhere and leave as much as or as little as about 4.5 feet between what I plant. Usually I'm going to aim more for 22, 23, 24 feet, because this is a forest. There's other things here. I want other things to be here. Oh, what is it that I want to be here? I'm glad you asked this question. I want ground cover. I want bushes of some sort. I want things that when the roots intertwine with the roots of what I plant, there's going to be a nice result. It's going to look familiar to me. And by the way, all these people, and actually the Bulong and the Dai, in addition to inherent indigenous, it's hard to say religions, but let's use that word because I'm lazy this morning. Religions, systems of belief. In addition to those, At some point, Buddhism also began to be accepted by these people. So you have these things all mixing together. So I want some room. Hey, do I like bugs or am I anti-bug? As it turns out, I love bugs, is what they're saying. And what sorts of bugs in particular did they love? Oh no, the number one on the list, I can barely get this out of my mouth because around my house, I have a sign in several places with crossbones, spiders forbidden. Now, not outside they're forbidden. They're forbidden to cross that line and come inside. Now, as it turns out, in this area, they love spiders. And in a way, they worship the spiders because they know that the spiders control the pests. And we're going to come back to that because that ends up being hugely important in this forest management. Globally important agricultural heritage system. Spiders. What else? How about birds? Oh, they love their birds because the birds eat many of the obnoxious pests. And what about bees and other large flying things that spread pollen? We love those. So those three things are part of their traditional system. So between 1000 and 1700, not only were they not doing anything to disturb these creatures, they were encouraging them. From 100 years old to 1000 years old, it's called cultivated ancient trees. And I know these numbers don't agree with what I've talked about before, but remember now, this is a study that was produced and they're using these numbers arbitrarily, and I'm happy to accept them. And so between 100 and 1000 years ago, as they planted, and it's very amazing because in all the years we've been going to Jingmai, I think we've been going to Jingmai maybe for 10 or 12 years. In all the years we've been going there and in those areas, we've run across one tea garden after another, and they're all ancient tea gardens. And they're in the weirdest places. You drive out in these remote places, you get out of the truck. Hey, that's an ancient tea garden. And it's clearly been cultivated. So they have these spots of them. They do, just like in the transitional, leave room between them. They encourage the growth of plants. What are they trying to really do? These are plants that they use to eat. These are epiphytics that they use for decoration and epiphytics that they use as medicine. And it's truly amazing. It's all part of this community that they've created, and it's part of their traditional growth integrated with the forest. So I ask you this because I'm sure I have skeptics. I love skeptics. Skeptics would say something like this. Okay, yeah, keeps forests, that's beautiful. Nice to have a place for animals to live. That's good. Those things are all good. But I gotta have my money. You know, I'm growing, I'm modern. I gotta make money. So I ask you this. Let's make a comparison because this will help everybody be on the same page. Let's take the output and let's think about the output for a minute. The output from ancient forest, whether it be completely wild or the transitional or this 100 to 1000 years old, is less than the output of an equivalent area of industrial monoclonal tea. Hey, I know Those of you who are in the industrial camp are saying, you see, I told you. That's not the whole story. Let's give you the whole story and see what you think. Nonetheless, oh, and let's give you the full details because I don't want you to be missing anything. Because like me, we're all scientists, so we want all the details. So in the monoclonal, and monoclonal, I'm really referring to the same county monoclonal, but this might as well be all of Yunnan monoclonal. They typically harvest spring, summer, and fall. So they get 3 harvests. So right away, you got to be getting more, right? Okay, that makes sense because the traditional ancient tree, no more than 2 harvests at most. Okay. All right, we're good so far. And from an economic value, let's talk about that. At a minimum, and you'll see why I say at a minimum in a minute, the traditional ancient tree twice a year harvesters make 6.5 times as much as these industrial farmers. Why is that? Because their product is beloved. When you have a beloved product, you and I as consumers, we have beloved expenditures. Well, maybe not so much beloved, but we do have expenditures. You could call them beloved because we like the result. So the economic value right off the bat is much, much more than the industrial farmers. Oh, and maybe I've forgotten to tell you something. In the forested areas, I can't remember, are they bringing up truckloads of fertilizer, fertilizing the whole forest and, you know, making sure everything is properly, you know, nutrified? I don't know whether that's a word, but I'm certainly using it on this one. And the answer would be no, 0 fertilizer. Oh no, in the industrial farms, they're fertilizing usually twice a year. Now, most of the places I come from, no, not most of the places, all the places I come from, there is always a cost of fertilization. I mean, a physical cost, dollars and cents cost. That's one thing. Secondly, let's talk about pesticides for a minute. I hate talking about pesticides, but we got to do it. In the industrial farms in Yunnan, by and large, because of climate conditions, and by the way, are those climate conditions any different than the climate conditions in the forest? Not really. Because you've got monsoonal forests, which means humid, hot, so you got lots of bugs. But the ones that are doing the monoclonal farming are paying for pesticides. They're pesticiding their fields once or twice a year. Does this mean 100% of them are? No, but it means the great majority are. Is any pesticide, is even 1 drop of pesticide used in the ancient forest? Sorry about that. The answer is no. So this is further cost benefit, cost value of the ancient tree. This is one of the reasons the FAO has gotten involved, because they realize, oh, this is sustainable, it costs less. Yes, the output is technically smaller, but the economic value is so much more that from a farmer perspective, if you're trying to get farmers a nice living, this is the nice living. So, oh, yeah, I could kind of feel thirst coming through the camera. I'm almost ready to turn it over. Not quite, sit down. Not quite. What are they using in the ancient forests? What techniques are they using to control the ancient forest? They do something called weeding. Weeding. What, they get a weed whacker? Oh no, they weed by hand. Okay, that's one thing. How are they controlling pests? You'll love this one. They trim diseased branches. That's enough to control the pests. Oh, well, there is one other thing. They worship the spiders, love the bees, and encourage the birds. That's their pest control. So this whole sense of what these ancient cultures bring. Oh, there is one more thing. I almost forgot this. What else are they doing to control the forest, or control the health of the forest is what I should say? They actually prune back dead branches. So they take off the disease stuff, whether it's dead or not. They prune the dead stuff. And that's it. That's all they're doing. And does every farmer do that? Well, every farmer weeds. Virtually, you can say 100% of them weed. But does every farmer do the pruning? No, only about 50% of them. Does every farmer cut back the diseased growth? About 60 to 70% of them do. So that's what you have in this incredible area. And this is why, again, China, the United Nations, everybody's looking at this and saying, maybe we have our models skewed. Maybe there's some mistakes going on with our models. China in particular is so focused on this that they've sent scientists, surveyors, photographers, movieographers to go down there and capture all this information so that around China, in areas where they have ancient growth, most of it is in Yunnan, but there are some other places where they have ancient growth, they can adopt all these techniques because A, they work, and B, they're better for the health of the land. It's as simple as that. Now, yes, I know you're thirsty, and I know the tea master is impatient. So we've got two ugly things that are about to occur here. So let me prevent them from happening. And it is my greatest pleasure to bring the beautiful, numinous, thirsty tea master.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm thirsty right now. I want to put tea for myself. Okay, so we call silky. It's raw black. So tea.
So she's got her normal tableau set up. You can have 2 cups. We use 3 to cool down the water faster. The tea leaves that she has set up, you have those. Those are 6 grams in your bags. It's labeled Reverence from the Jingmai Mountains. She's drawing 175-degree water. That is the temperature you're going to use for this particular tea. But she's going to aerate the water, dissipate the steam. And so the eventual temperature will be a little less. That's fine. Going to make sure that all the cups are clean as they can be. No residual soap spots or anything.
So you can do two cups. So my style 3. Yeah. One seventy.
That's gonna be fine. So realizing that there's tea rhythm here. You notice she's not rushing through this. She's going through it step by step. And this is what you should aim for as well.
What was the water temperature again for this tea?
175. Thank you. So dissipating steam, aerating the water, and that always is going to end up giving a better flavor. And by the way, I didn't talk about it while I was talking about the cultural terroir. But one of the things that they realized when they set up the ancient trees is that the flavor profile ends up being sweeter when you're getting leaves off of trees versus monoclonal fields. And that has to do with the fact that the trees are shaded, especially when they're young. And it allows them to accumulate catechins and other compounds which increase the photosynthesis. Oops, I said I wasn't going to do science. Here I am doing science. So pretend I didn't say that. Let's just pretend that I said the end result is sweeter.
Yeah. And also I teach you a little bit how. So this is my style. So also this right now, this is on purpose. Water, looking, I use this cup. Looking up. One more time. Transfer. Yeah, become cooler. And it's so hot. This I want. Yeah. And the shaking. But the shaking you can see me. So okay, cover. Smell. Yeah. This is also, I put it, the one side. Don't touch leaves. And we need the speed. Speed also. What I use it. Gentle, slowly, shaking.
So you see, there's a rhythm to this. So this isn't
Healing, little bit.
And this is a 4-minute steep. So I'm not trying to convince you that it is something that has to be done and everybody has the same rhythm, because you don't. All of us have a different rhythm, and a different rhythm is okay. It's the fact that there's rhythm, which is the key part to it. Rhythm can be a little jerky. Rhythm can be longer or shorter, but rhythm helps you keep track of details. One of the reasons that owner of the Chinese restaurant, I'm sorry, the Chinese owner came over here of the restaurants, talked about how good it is here is because really what he's reflecting on is the rhythm. There is an understanding that there's an order and that there's a way to handle tea leaves. And if you handle them that way, whether you're a little quicker or a little slower, you aerate from way up here or you aerate from down here, it doesn't matter. It matters that you go through all the steps. Yes.
So by rhythm, we mean conscious engagement, moment by moment, process.
Perfect. Rhythm. Here's the definition. Conscious engagement, with the process, moment by moment. You know, I'm really lucky today because I have a lot of supervisors. And you guys are getting the best presentation today because there's so many supervisors. I have so little opportunity to wander off path. So I'm grateful for all the supervision. And you should be grateful too that I'm being supervised. All right. So, yes, conscious moment by moment. I love that definition of rhythm. And that's truly what it is. All right, so let's take a look at this. So you can see that the leaves, many of them have fallen to the bottom, but they're standing. And many of them are still at the top and they're pointed downward. You have more at the bottom than at the top. This is one tea from this particular area where the leaves need that longer brewing cycle in order to bring out the flavor. And again, you're going to describe the flavor, so I'm not going to spoil that for you. The other thing I want to remind you is to make sure you take notes about this because we're going to do 3 straight raw blacks. So we're starting off with Reverence today. We are going to go to Sylvan Symphony from the Isle Mountains next week, and then we'll finish it off with New Start. So 3 very different raw blacks. This is your opportunity to open up with this particular raw black from a long tradition. Okay, let's see how we're almost ready. So you should be getting your water ready for this as well. Next week, we'll spend time going through the process. I didn't want to, again, spend much time going through the process today because it's really better for you to have an understanding of what culture this comes from. And the pictures that we sent were designed to highlight because it was not only of the tea fields, but you saw city offices where we were in this area. And they're not, I should have said government offices. They're not cities at all. They're villages. All right, timer has gone off.
This is very important. Don't fast. It's faster. It's a favor to change and bitter and gentle. Slowly. You can fade in.
Okay, so with a rhythm, with attention to what she was doing and a reason for what she was doing, that is by having that rhythm, you're going to get a sweeter, less astringent result. You saw what she did in terms of pouring. Here you get a chance to see the color, and the color is what's really important about this. So let's go ahead and enter the quality arena. And so the quality arena has to do with not only flavor and aroma, but basically at the beginning, it has to do with where is the feeling in the mouth? Where's the dryness in the mouth? What sort of aftertaste am I going to get? And most importantly, what are the energetics? How do I feel after I drink this tea? So let's go ahead and enter. This is 175 degrees, so you can be a little bit more generous as you take in the initial sip. You're still careful. You roll it around your tongue. You're going to notice some things. One of the first things you're going to notice is an incredible aftertaste. Energetics, we're working on that. I'm going to take a second sip and I'm going to focus and verify that where there was dryness, there still is. And I'm going to start to work on aroma and flavor. And I'm taking notes because to give yourself context, and we've had this conversation 3 or 4 times this week with customers about how do you develop context for a tea? You develop context for a tea by trying others and then noting and comparing, noting and comparing. This is how you get context. This is how you become really good at understanding these teas instead of haphazard about understanding these teas. All right, so it's your turn to brew. Tea master is going to brew with you. Remember to set your timers for 4 minutes. Your cups are totally clean. Temperature of the water when you are heating the cup, it doesn't matter. It can be any temperature between 175 and 212. But when you brew, it's going to be 175. Dissipating the steam, heating the cup, making sure that there are no soap, there's no soap residue. In a minute, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the totem of this village. Not ready to talk to you about that yet. I want you to pay attention to the rhythm that the tea master uses.
Maybe I missed this, but could you please confirm what type of ancient tree this is from? Is it
Oh.
wild, transitional, or cultivated?
Great question. This is a cultivated ancient tree. The age of this is somewhere between around 1100 years to around 1500 years old.
Hi, puppies.
Say again.
I think that was Moops.
Oh, okay. You know, it's not in a hurry, just kind of going through this rhythm here. You get your leaves. This is 6 grams. We put it in the heated cup. And then you add the water, which you've already dissipated. The steam, that is, aerated. And you set your timer for 4 minutes. All right. So I will never, ever forget the first time I came to this particular village. Because first off, the driver got lost 7 or 8 times before we finally found the village. So that was one issue, but it's not like they're real clear signs. You know, go by the rocks where you'll see black chickens walking around on the rocks. That was one of the instructions. You go up the road, and if you look over the side of the cliff, you'll see a reservoir way down, or you'll see water way down in the distance. That was another one of the instructions. So we got all these, for them, very precise instructions. For us, and as you know, when you've been on a trail in Yosemite and you know, well, look for that half pine and, you know, about this distance or about this time into it. And then you'll see people falsely piled rocks on the left, don't go that way, go to the right. You hear all these things and you kind of visualize it, but until you actually get there, it doesn't compute. So the other issue with getting to this village was instead of directing us to the center of the village, which would have been relatively easier to find, we were directed, and I wasn't driving. We had a driver. We had hired a driver. Driver was directed to go to this dirt road that intersected with the dirt road we were on. And by the way, the intersection came up from the bottom and was unmarked, of course, because we're way the heck out in the countryside. Finally found it, walked down this road, and you turn a corner, and the village head was down there. And what do you see? You see this magnificent tree with 70 to 80 hives on it. And these are beehives. And you hear the buzzing, actually, before you see it. And this thing is just magnificent. And this is, in quotes, their home tree. They worship this tree. Secondarily, so remember, you have 4 groups in this village: Bulong, Dai, Lahu, and Hani. The Hani and the Lahu actually take the tea tree as their mother and father. In other words, they sprang up from tea trees. They're really wise people, by the way. This is how important the tea is in this particular village. And so the fact that it's become a World Heritage Site means that there's going to be more traffic to this site, more people trying to go. Although these years, because of pandemic and other things, that hasn't panned out the way people originally thought. Nonetheless, at some point, I think there will end up being more people going there. Although it's never gonna rank higher than the Yellow, it won't even reach the Yellow Mountains or some of the other very beautiful scenic sites. This is a site you go to if you're interested in culture, if you're interested in tea, and if you're interested in that Southwest landscape. All right, your timer should have gone off. That was a 4-minute steep. Separating the tea leaves from the tea in a rhythm, not in a hurry,
Slowly.
with
Oh,
attention.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, so you're going to tell me stuff because you're going to detect stuff. You're going to detect stuff in the aroma. You're going to detect stuff in the tea liquor. And hopefully you'll take notes because, like I said, we're going to do 3 consecutive raw blacks. And take your time because we're in tea rhythm. We're here in the moment. No need to rush.
The dry leaves have a crisp. The dry leaves have a crisp, clean scent, and the wet leaves have a roast malty essence that I can't quite place.
Dry leaves, crisp, clean scent. Wet leaves have an essence, still trying to place what that essence, it's malty, but trying to further understand what that essence is.
Dry leaves smell sweet.
Dry leaves smell sweet. You're all on the right track. I love the sweet comment because raw black has a whole range of flavors. And when we first got this, sweet wasn't an opening round flavor. It certainly is now, though. And this is the value for you as a consumer that we got loose leaf raw black. And so year by year, it's aging, it's changing. And this thing is probably 6 or 7 or 7 or 8 years old.
Aroma is mild, allspice, or clovish.
Oh, I love this. Aroma is mild, allspice or clovish. So we're getting some sweet, we're getting some clovish, we're getting some allspice. In other words, this isn't a single note, is it? It's a bunch of notes. And that's what's really interesting, because when raw black first comes out of being processed, you almost always are overwhelmed by astringency. But wait a minute, I haven't heard one of you mention astringency. And that's because that's backed away. And now you're getting all these underlying flavors. And this is going to be important because as an armchair tea traveler, you're going to come to a conclusion, but that's continuing.
Warm, dry leaves have sweet fruit sweetness, and wet leaves have shifted to a tart aroma.
Warm, dry leaves have a fruit sweetness. Oh, I'm in love with this comment. The wet leaves have a tartness to them. I'm not going to tell you yet why I'm in love with that comment, but I am liking, because you're homing in on something.
The aroma has a combination vegetal and floral scent.
Vegetal and floral scent in the aroma. I like this as well, because typically with raw black, especially if it's, again, just out of the hoppers, you're not going to get much of a floral. That floral comes through maturation. In other words, an aging through time. It had to have existed, by the way, right from the beginning. And whether you sensed it or not at the beginning doesn't mean it wasn't there.
We have a mild astringency at the back of throat, and also another participant has an astringency at the top of the tongue.
Mild astringency for one at the back of the throat, an astringency for another at the top of the tongue. Top of the mouth or top of the tongue?
Top
Tip
of
of
the
the
tongue.
tongue.
No, top of the tongue,
Top of the tongue, okay.
top of the tongue. And a juicy mouthfeel. So
Ah, juicy mouthfeel. Absolutely. So we've got some sweet, we've got tart, we've got fruit, we've got floral, we've got a little bit of astringency, and we have juiciness. A bunch of things going on here.
everybody's sipping. I think.
No problem. Me too.
I'll reiterate the juicy mouthfeel.
Okay. So a reiteration of the juicy mouthfeel. Absolutely get that. And while you're thinking of this, I'll also, as we have all of these flavor profiles that have come forth, start to give you more context, because there's one piece of context you don't have. Well, I'm going to provide to you now. And that is, in these tea areas, they actually have quite a few fruit trees growing as well. So that influences, at the end of the day, what this flavor is going to be.
I also get kind of, with the juice, a little bit slippery.
So I like the term slippery. Yeah, it goes down easily. It's like that.
Like a stone fruit versus an apple.
There you go. Stone fruit versus an apple. Absolutely.
There's also, of course, an umami taste overall to the tea liquor.
An umami taste overall to the tea liquor. Yes. And none of you led with that, which means that it's really over time coming out. And yet, if you had had this right when it was ready, that would have been a primary flavor. So really, really great job today on capturing these flavors. This was a great find for us. We've enjoyed this one from the start. And again, I hope you take really, really good notes on this because this is a great place to give you context. Next week, if there are no further comments, we're going to do Sylvan Symphony. Sylvan Symphony is from mountains that are probably about 300 or 400 miles to the north. So there's going to be a different flavor profile. But you're also going to get the wonderfulness of an aged in a cake raw black. As usual, all of you did an astounding job today. I'm always amazed because while I'm only a 92, all of you as 99s find those additional 7% of things that I don't find. But I see that they're there. I salute you for your ability to hone in on what's going on with these teas. I want to remind you again that if you are thinking about attending the July 21st, and it'll be in the afternoon, by the way, I don't have the exact time, please let me know. In the meantime, what are you supposed to do this week? You're supposed to have a great week. You're supposed to stay healthy. You know, I'm reading in the news everywhere that new variations of COVID are coming around and so forth. Hey, let those new variations play somewhere else. Let's stay healthy. And I look forward to seeing everybody next week. Bye-bye now.
Bye.